Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Produce Buzzers podcast. We're so happy that you've joined us today, and I think you will be too after the show is over. You will have learned a lot about fresh fruits and vegetables, how to prepare them, what their nutritional value is, all about their history and origin. We hope you'll find it interesting, and we hope it inspires you to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables, not only to improve your health, but to enjoy their deliciousness while you do so. Thanks for joining us. Once again, I'm Edwin Stepp, your host and executive editor of ProduceBuzz.com. We're joined, as usual, by Teresa Nolan, the president and founder of Produce Buzz, and Rick Stepp, contributor to Produce Buzz, and the lovely Cynthia Benedetto, also a contributor to Produce Buzz. The four of us have worked together in the produce industry for many years, and we're excited to share some of the information that we've learned over those years, and also the information we're continuing to learn, because there's still a lot to learn about fresh fruits and veggies. And at Produce Buzz, you'll learn how to select them, how to store them, how to prepare them, get some good recipes, all about their history and origin and their nutritional value. So let's get started, Produce Buzzers. Are you all ready?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Great. Well, it's October, and October is National Apple Month. Not a surprise, because that's when apples are in season and tasting their best. And recently I learned about a man who has done quite a bit to preserve heirloom variety apples. The man's name is Tom Brown, and he lives in Clemens, North Carolina. And about 20 years ago, he set out to find lost heirloom varieties of apples. And over those 20 years, he has found 1,200 different varieties that were thought to be extinct. He has an orchard in Clemens, North Carolina, where he has these 1,200 different varieties growing. And in this time of year, he has them. You can go and visit the farm and taste all these heirloom varieties. So hats off to Tom Brown for saving some of these lost varieties. Maybe we'll do a segment featuring him in a future episode of Produce Buzzers. I'd like to meet him and congratulate him and learn more about what he's done there. That also brings me to a situation which scientists are dealing with and have identified, and that is the loss of diversification in fresh fruits and vegetables. Produce Buzzers, are you aware of this problem that the scientists have identified? It's a scary proposition. I've read that over the last 100 to 150 years, we may have lost anywhere from 80 to 90% of varieties within the fruit and vegetable world. What have you read about it?
The only thing that I know, when you were like, read about it, I'm like, well, I'm not going to get that done. But Orchid Island grapefruit that my mom sold, that I understand there's definitely one tree left, but there are just a handful, literally, that are on Orchid Island still producing that variety of grapefruit. It was thin-skinned, and it was sweet, but that was because it was on that Orchid Island, on the barrier island, and the combination of the water table being so shallow and limestone in the soil created this.
Did it dwindle down because it wasn't as hardy and worthy of making it through the shipping process, or why?
No, it gave way to land values.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's part of the problem. Have you heard of the Doomsday Vault? Any of you?
Yeah.
You have? Yeah. The Doomsday Vault is in Norway, almost up in the north, very close to the North Pole. It's a big vault that they're storing seeds from all types of varieties of fresh fruits and vegetables. They located it there because it's very cold year round, so that if the electricity were to go off the power grid, they say these seeds could survive for decades without any kind of electrical power keeping them at their optimum temperature or whatever. And so far, they have amassed almost 1 million different seed in this vault, and they're from all over the world, and so it's an amazing process there. They call it the Doomsday Vault because scientists fear that if we get a massive blight or something in our normal food crops, that we might lose varieties and it could cause global famine. They say that 60% of the world's calories come from only 3 plants: rice, corn, and wheat. So these scientists are trying to preserve different varieties to prevent what happened in Ireland with the potato famine. They had one variety of potato that they grew in Ireland, and when the potato famine occurred, and when the blight hit it, over 1 million people died of hunger, and so that's what they're hoping to prevent with this. So anyway, diversification, a lot of varieties have been lost, and people like Tom Brown are out there trying to keep them alive, which I think is a good thing. And hopefully we'll, a lot of these, when it comes to apples, we're getting new varieties. It seems like almost every year somebody's creating a new variety or
So
finding a new variety.
Why are these varieties being lost for? What are the reasons?
Well, a variety of reasons, but primarily because of the commercialization of fruits and vegetables. Certain fruits and vegetables don't ship well. And a lot of these, like the heirloom tomatoes, you know well if you've ever bought them, they don't hang around long, and they can't stand up to the rigors of transportation. So I think that's one of the biggest things. And then they're constantly developing new varieties that are hardier, pest resistant, and yield more. So it's a commercialization. What if farmers are not to blame for this? I don't think it's, they're in business to make money. They have to plant what is going to be most successful for them and produce the most profit. But as the world has changed and less people are growing their own fruits and vegetables, I think that's another big part of it. This Tom Brown finds these varieties mostly on clues from older people. He said most of the ones that have given him clues as to where to find these trees were in their 80s and 90s, and they had these trees growing up in their yards or whatever, and they were growing their own food. So there's a variety of reasons, but I think the commercialization of farming has been a big part of it.
I think it's a good thing that they're doing this. I know that a lot of the varieties that we used to have in North Carolina in the apple business, you guys probably remember, like the Arkansas Black and the Wolf Rivers. And those were pretty popular commercially in their day, but some people are preserving those. But it's kind of interesting to me because I would call this evolution. I would call it natural selection.
Survival of the fittest?
Yeah, natural selection. So people find we like this better, so they change it. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but I think that's been going on this earth for billions of years, where animals and plants select certain things and some die out and some live and get better.
Right.
So I'm not a pessimist when it comes to developing better varieties. I think it's just part of the natural evolution of things.
Yeah. Some, for instance, like when I worked with the New Zealand growers, they had a Braeburn apple that was what they call a sport. It was a natural variation in varieties that just popped out on a tree, and a grower found it and cultivated it, created a whole new big variety. And that was naturally done, as opposed to working in a lab where the growers there and in other countries also do that. But I have read that the banana crop is in jeopardy because of the slim, the few varieties that are being grown commercially. And I think maybe one or two of the shippers are trying now to diversify their plants to make sure that they don't lose it in case there is a big fungus or whatever that comes in and wipes things out.
Which has already happened in the past. Up until the 1950s, the main variety, the dominant commercial variety that we got in the States and most of the world, was called the Gros Michel. And in the 1950s, a fungus spread through South America and Central America and nearly wiped it completely out. Now we have one variety, the variety today that is commercially dominant, and about the only variety you can find in most grocery stores is the Cavendish. But they are worried that if a fungus sweeps through Central and South America again, this could go the way of the Gros Michel. And there are fungi that are beginning to spread in Central and South America, which could render this variety extinct as well. But there's like thousands of different varieties of bananas, but to ship them across the globe is one thing. You know, they can't all make it across the globe.
But even I find that the bananas at store level, so Publix has a consistent variety, but then sometimes if you go to Sprouts, they have smaller hands and the smaller bananas. So I don't know, is that just a different time in harvesting, or is that a different variety?
Well, I've seen the different varieties in certain stores in LA area, especially in the Asian markets. You'll see 4 or 5 different types of bananas, red bananas, and they're usually much smaller. And the flavor of those things usually are just fantastic. They blow the Cavendish away, in my opinion. But yeah, I don't know. It could be a different variety. I mean, but it is interesting because the Cavendish banana, I noticed, in my local grocery store here, they can vary quite a bit in size, like you were saying. So, but I've never seen like really small ones. I mean, like these other varieties that I'm talking about. But,
well, I've noticed that a lot of the bananas that they call organic can be smaller. In Sprouts, they probably sell a lot of organic. And I'm just guessing there may be a variety that works better when you grow it organically than the traditional variety that we see in the stores. But maybe that's why Sprouts has the smaller ones.
Right.
But back to the other issue on the varieties.
Yeah.
I always say, well, who's going to preserve them? You know, it used to be that 70% of our country before World War II, people grew their own food.
Right.
And so they saved their seeds for the next year and the next year. And then once in a while, they get a natural mutation like Teresa was talking about, and they say, hey, that tomato was really good. Let's save the seeds from that tomato because it's bigger. Right. And they would do it themselves. And so you had millions of people saving their own seeds. Now, here we are, all these people living in cities that don't grow a garden. Are they going to preserve the seeds? No. They want to be able to go into the store, look at the shelf and say, oh, that's a beautiful red apple. I think I'll buy that. They don't want, most people aren't concerned with, well, was this apple an heirloom variety that we preserved? Okay. Why isn't somebody else preserving these heirloom varieties? Well, the reason somebody else is not doing it is because we have fewer people in charge of that. and they're the ones that are making an income from it. So they have to naturally select what people want and need. And
that they
as
can
we
get
know in
to.
the apple business, growing up in the apple business, the Red Delicious used to be a very tasty apple, but it was a striped color. It evolved because people were so dumb. No offense, but people were so dumb that they bought the apple by what it looked like, not with no knowledge of what kind it was. It's just, that's a beautiful red shiny apple. I will buy that one.
Right.
And so that's where we are today.
Yeah, but lucky
Yeah.
for us, produce is an impulse item. Like yellow bananas, they will sell. Ripe avocados, beautiful strawberries. If they weren't, and it was just something like onions, hardware, carrots, ho hum, then you'd never. I think you couldn't make an impact on the sales.
Yeah, and if you're growing your own food for survival, and your onion is misshapen, and your apple is striped yellow and red and looks and got bug bites all over it, you grew that to eat, you're going to eat it.
Yeah.
But when you go in the store, you want to be able to walk in there and say, oh, let me select my produce that I didn't grow. I wouldn't have a clue on how to grow it. Yeah. I want somebody else to provide me with my food.
Exactly.
and to save the seeds every year and to preserve the heirloom varieties, but I don't want to get involved.
I'll get involved, but however, the buck stops when I go, I want to put my own produce in the bag, because you're not going to do a good enough job, and you're going to put something soft on the bottom and then pile stuff on top.
You're right. I'm the world's worst gardener, but I know my wife, she grew up Scandinavian in Duluth, Minnesota, and they grew a garden every year, and they saved their seeds every year. They saved the seeds and they planted them the next year. And it's almost totally, and I've been in produce all my life, and it's almost totally foreign for me to think about saving seeds.
There is on Facebook a group, there may be more than one, but they're focused on heirloom seeds, and they trade them with each other. And so there are some, gardeners that are interested in that, and
right.
it's a good place to go if you are interested.
Yeah, and near Pasadena, Altadena, California, which is just north of Pasadena in the LA area, they have a seed library. So they call it a library because you can go get seeds from there, but
check them out,
you plant them, but when you harvest, you're supposed to bring some of those seeds back to the library. So it's like you're not checking back in the same seeds, obviously, but you're checking in the same variety.
It's like a book exchange, like the free library where you can take a book, but you have to bring one back.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah. And they're starting to build quite a few varieties there, or have quite a few varieties of all different types of fruits and vegetables. So, and Southern California is an easy place to grow just about anything. So it might work there better than other parts of the world.
Yeah, could you imagine me doing out in the back? I'd be sweating to the oldies, trying to hoe the ground, and then the sun would come up about 9 o'clock in the morning, and then burn all my stuff to death. There's 2 months a year I could grow something. So you guys got to pick up the slack on the West Coast.
With some seeds, like for instance, one of the things I learned when I worked with the strawberry growers, their research stations would take the seeds off of strawberries and plant them, and you get a different variety with every seed. So it's the saving of the seeds must be kind of like wonder what I'm going to get this year from some plants.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
that's also true with apples. If you plant a seed from an apple that you have in your refrigerator, it most likely will not produce the same variety that you had in your refrigerator. In order to continue propagating the same variety, they have to graft a limb from that variety onto rootstock. And the rootstock doesn't produce its variety, it produces whatever was grafted onto it. But even then, accidental varieties can occur, like Teresa was talking about the strawberries. Well, I met the man who discovered the ambrosia apple. He was from British Columbia, and he was at one of the produce conventions I attended. And he was telling me the story of going out into the orchard and just walking through, and he said, "What is this on one tree?" And there it was. It just had come out of nowhere.
That's amazing.
Okay, well, diversification of seeds, the doomsday vault. People are trying to preserve varieties that have been lost, and that's a good thing. But also, as Rick pointed out, maybe it's just a part of the natural process, natural selection, and that has been taking place over centuries and millennia. So let's move on. And now it is October, as we mentioned. And what comes to mind when you think of October and the fruit and veggie kingdom? Pumpkins, of course. Everybody's got their pumpkin spice lattes, their pumpkin spice whatever. You know, everything's pumpkin spice now, which really isn't the flavor of a pumpkin, I don't think. It's nutmeg and cinnamon, isn't it? Isn't that really what pumpkin spice is?
Yes.
Yeah.
Pumpkin doesn't. Well, Rick may disagree. Rick is going to tell us all about pumpkins today. So, what does a pumpkin taste like? Does it have a distinct flavor? Rick, tell us about pumpkins.
Well, in answer to your question, it's really a squash. All pumpkins are it's called a winter squash. And I buy pumpkins every year, but I don't carve them into jack-o'-lanterns. I just think they're so beautiful the way they are. I put them out in front of our door, as a decoration. And then when we're done with them, about Thanksgiving, I cut them up and eat them. Most people want a pumpkin for a jack-o'-lantern. And I think that's great. The kids like doing that, but I just like to eat them afterwards. If you cut them into a jack-o'-lantern, they're going to deteriorate and you're not going to want to eat that. But even the jack-o'-lantern pumpkins are very good to eat. It's just like having a winter squash. And if you do make a jack-o'-lantern, don't throw those seeds away.
Send them to the doomsday vault.
There might be an heirloom in there.
Yeah. But seriously, you can roast the pumpkin seeds. If you throw those pumpkin seeds away, you're wasting food. They're very nutritious. I roast them in the microwave, believe it or not. You just clean off the pulp from the seeds, just lay them out flat on a plate, put them in the microwave for maybe 2 minutes, and it roasts them, and put a little salt on there, and you've got a great snack. Very nutritious snack. But I would venture to say that probably only 0.5% people who buy pumpkins in October, the Halloween jack-o'-lantern pumpkins, would even eat one part of it. They throw when we talk about food waste in this country, I've thought a good bit about it. It's probably the most wasted food in America, pumpkins. Yeah. Because very few people even buy a fresh pumpkin to make a pie anymore. Some do. It's very rare. But a pumpkin is a cultivar of winter squash. The pumpkin is native to northeastern Mexico and the southern U.S. Pumpkins are one of the oldest domesticated plants, having been used as early as 7,500 to 5,000 BC.
Wow.
I never thought about how ancient they were. Commercially canned pumpkin puree and pumpkin pie fillings are usually made from different kinds of winter squash than the ones used for jack-o'-lanterns.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. We used to sell the pie pumpkins in November at the market. You probably remember, because people in the Southeast like to buy those what they call pie pumpkins and make their own pumpkin pies from the fresh pumpkins. And
that's
my
different
dad,
than the
yeah.
jack-o'-lantern pumpkin. I don't remember.
Yeah, oh yeah,
I kind of forgotten about that.
yeah. They were kind
Are
of a
they
brown
different?
color.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the ones that we
They're
sold.
smaller, aren't they?
I'd say on average they're probably smaller, yeah, but not real small. I mean, the ones that we sold were fairly good size. But like I said, even the jack-o'-lantern pumpkins are good to eat. I cut them up, peel the skin off, and put them in the freezer. The pieces of pumpkin in the freezer. Personally, I use them for soup. You can just take that fresh pumpkin that you froze and put it in with a vegetable soup. It makes a really good base. You can puree it and if you want it pureed, you can puree it and put that in your soup as a base. I would like to encourage people to eat as much of it as possible. Of course, if you're using it for decoration and you're going to carve it and you're going to set it outside for 2 months, I would not advise eating pumpkin after that.
I was just going to say though, don't you scrape all the insides out? Couldn't you just really scrape down the sides and then?
Yeah, you could carve some of the inside out so that you could eat maybe half of it.
That's kind of like lobster or cracked crab. That's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, when you carve the pumpkin, you cut the top off, you pull out all the seeds, roast those seeds and eat them. They're very nutritious. But then you could just take something and carve some of the pumpkin off around the inside and at least eat that much of it. It wouldn't be that labor intensive to do that. China and India combined account for half of the world's production of pumpkins. I never would have guessed that. So
China, did you say?
China and India combined account for half of the world's production of pumpkin.
Wow.
Because they eat them for a food over there. And there's a billion people probably. So that would account for why they produce so many, because they're so easy to grow. The term pumpkin has no agreed upon botanical or scientific meaning and is used interchangeably with squash and winter squash in North America. Pumpkin traditionally refers to only certain round orange varieties of winter squash, but they really have many more varieties than just the orange ones. According to the Oxford Dictionary, the English word pumpkin is derived from an ancient Greek word meaning melon. Early modern English, the name had evolved to Pompillon. I believe that's a French word, which was changed to pumpkin by 17th century English colonists shortly after encountering pumpkins upon their arrival in what is now the northeastern United States. So that's one thing that the settlers did not bring over. Pumpkins were here, had been here for 5,000 years.
Yeah. And I guess they didn't get to Europe until the colonists came, or like a lot of things. There were a lot of things from the Americas that made it to Europe after the Europeans came.
But here's the thing that's interesting. We have this Latin word that evolved into pumpkin, but an alternate derivation for the name pumpkin was from the Native American tribe, the Massachusetts Native American people that were in the Northeast when the Pilgrims arrived.
Yeah, I wonder what state that is now. Any guesses? I don't know.
I think there's a big rock that you can park there and.
Yeah. And so their word for pumpkin was popucken, which means grows round.
Huh.
So
this is
all
round or grows round?
Pumpkin, or I couldn't hear what you said. Means runs with squirrels.
After I read that, I thought of this. There's a Southern term, and really not just in the South. People call them pumpkins. I'm going to grow some pumpkins.
Pumpkin. Yeah.
And so I started wondering, I wonder if that actually goes back to that Indian or Native American word, popumpkin.
Pumpkin.
And they still make pumpkins. And one of the things that makes a pumpkin nutritious is the beta carotene. And whenever you see an orange color in a fruit or vegetable, usually means there's plenty of beta carotene, which converts to vitamin A that your body uses. So I always used to think when you see the big championship, huge pumpkins, that those were the same pumpkins. They're not. They're actually a different type of squash that people have, that have an orange color, that people have propagated and tried to grow them bigger, larger and larger. The record for the world's heaviest, quote unquote, pumpkin was 2,625 pounds. And it was recorded in Belgium in 2016.
How long does that take them to grow? Is it one season?
Yeah, one season.
That's gross. That just seems like so gluttonous to me. Like when, because like it's like now I'm fat shaming the pumpkin, but now when you have to get like a forklift in there to pick up the pumpkin, and like when you said 2,000 pounds, I was like, that's just gross. I mean, are they tearing that thing apart and making food for people?
You could probably eat it. It might not taste good.
It wouldn't kill you to eat it, but you might not enjoy it.
You'd have to have an axe. You'd have to use an axe to cut it up, or a chainsaw.
Right?
I guess that's sort of like the pumpkin sport, who can grow the biggest farmers having a sport with pumpkins.
Yeah. And they do it all over the country. If you go to a state fair anywhere in the United States in the autumn, you're going to see the giant pumpkins that people grew.
Right.
It's just it's something that goes on everywhere. And the pumpkins are
not at my house it doesn't.
Yeah. The pumpkins are grown all around the world for a variety of reasons, ranging from agricultural purposes such as animal feed to commercial and ornamental sales. The top pumpkin producing states, would anybody like to guess what the top pumpkin producing states are?
California.
Ohio.
Yeah, you're both right.
What did you say? Ohio?
Not in that order, but you both picked one of the top four. Teresa,
I know there's a town in California that. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Edwin. Go ahead.
There's a town in California that claims to be the pumpkin capital of the world. That's why I guess California. It's not that far north of LA, but anyway. Yeah,
they grow more pumpkins than China.
Hey. Teresa had a guess. Come on, Teresa.
Okay, how about Wisconsin?
No,
they're not in there.
I was surprised. Here's the way they rank. Illinois is number 1.
Wow.
Indiana number 2. Ohio number 3. Pennsylvania number 4. And California number 5. So I was really surprised that the Midwest is the ideal climate for growing pumpkins.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because they need cool nights to color up. So, but then you've got to have warm days. So that does make sense. Cools off a little more in those areas at night. According to the Illinois Department of Agriculture, 95% of the U.S. crop intended for processing is grown in Illinois. And processing, of course, would be for pumpkin pie filling, the canned pumpkin.
Libby's?
Yeah. In fact, Libby's is the name brand. And Libby's produces 85% of the processed pumpkin in the United States at their plant in Morton, Illinois. But, when it comes to eating pumpkin, I'd venture to say that probably at least 80% of the pumpkin that's eaten in this country is from pumpkin pie filling that people buy for making
Absolutely.
Pumpkin. Yeah.
It's kind of like, it's not Thanksgiving unless you get a pumpkin pie.
Right. I'm a little bit biased because I never have liked pumpkin pie. My wife loves it.
Oh,
To me, it's like if I go for Thanksgiving and all they have is pumpkin pie, I'm like, is that all there is? You know, to me, can't
don't
we
you
have,
like pie?
I never really cared for pumpkin pie.
But you like other kinds of pie? Apple
Oh
pie,
yeah,
blueberry pie?
yeah, cheesecake. You know,
Wait a minute. Cheesecake is not a pie.
well, they do have pumpkin cheesecake.
Oh, yes.
It's like Edwin said, it's the spices, it's not the actual pumpkin. They are, of course, a warm weather crop that is usually planted in early July. No matter where you live in the country, you usually plant them in early July because you want them to be mature in October, November. So
Right.
you could plant them earlier, but then your pumpkins are going to mature earlier. So most of them are planted in July. The pumpkins are rather hardy, and even if many leaves and portions of the vine are removed or damaged, the plant can very quickly regrow secondary vines to replace what was removed. So some people would call this a weed. You ever notice that when you're growing food that it's dead? You do something like that, step on it, it's dead. It's not going to come back. But weeds, you cut them down. You like Cynthia out there hoeing in her garden at 100 degrees with 90 humidity, trying to hoe the weeds. The next day they're right back. You know, they don't stop. The pumpkin is, I guess it would be attributed to the fact that it has been around for so many thousands of years that it has to evolve to survive. You know, something else that's interesting about pumpkins is and nutritionally, pumpkins are a good source of vitamin A, most of the B vitamins, vitamin C and vitamin E, magnesium, potassium, and zinc. So very nutritious. Most parts of the pumpkin are edible. In fact, I would say all of it is edible because that includes the fleshy shell, the seeds, the leaves, and the flowers. So you'd have to say that all parts are edible.
The stem?
Next to the stem.
Oh, that's true. I didn't think about that.
Actually, I guess if the leaves are edible, the stem could be edible before it's picked and it dries.
That's right. That's right. In fact, we can talk about that a little bit later about the stem, because you're right, it could be eaten. Because like when I cook zucchini or yellow squash, I always cut up the green stem too and eat it. Yeah. It's of course crunchier, harder, but I just can't stand to waste it. So I do.
What would you do with the shell? Would you pickle it? How would you, or do you just eat the shell?
I guess if you cooked it enough, it would soften up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would probably not want to eat the shell myself, but maybe in certain countries they cook it enough that it would soften it. But you know, back to eating the stem of the pumpkin. When pumpkins are still small and green, they can be eaten the same way as summer squash or zucchini. And I wish my son Phil grows a big patch of pumpkins every year at his place. And next year I'm going to try to remember to pick one when it's young and green and see how it tastes as a regular squash.
Yeah.
Too late for this year. In China, the leaves of the pumpkin plant are consumed as a cooked vegetable or in soups. So pumpkin leaves. Have you guys ever tried eating pumpkin leaves?
No.
But in the southwestern U.S. and in Mexico, pumpkin and squash flowers are a popular and widely available food item. They may be used to garnish dishes, and they may be dredged in a batter and then fried in oil. Which, like, you can eat anything if you put it in batter and fry it in oil.
And it all tastes the same.
Is that pumpkin flowers? Or so then all the flowers must look similar, because it's like isn't it the zucchini flowers that have the squash blossom flowers?
Yeah. Yeah,
They-
I think, didn't you mention that in the other segment, Cynthia, about the squash flowers?
Squash blossom, yeah, but
Yeah.
but it sounds like if they're in the same family as pumpkin, and if they're like eating those flowers, stuff it
Yeah.
with
Well,
cheese
they're
and
all a
deep fry
squash.
it.
Yeah, they're all a squash variety. So pumpkin is just a different variation of squash. I would like to ask this, just kind of a lightning round. If each of you could tell me what your favorite use of pumpkin is. If you have a favorite use.
It would probably be decorating for me.
Yeah.
Putting them out, but unlike you, I do like pumpkin pie.
Mm-hmm.
But Mrs. Smith usually bakes mine.
Yeah, you know what? You can't beat a store-bought pumpkin pie.
Yeah.
Oh, bullshit. My pumpkin pie is good.
Okay,
I'm very
Cynthia's
finicky
making
about-
pumpkin pies for all of us this
I'm very
Thanksgiving.
finicky about my crust
All right.
and
You're
then
gonna-
the
you're
whipped
gonna-
cream.
You got to bake
Oh.
one for each of us and mail it to us.
Now, Cynthia, are you telling us that you make pumpkin pie from fresh pumpkins?
From 85% of the market, Libby's.
Yeah, okay.
Libby's on the label.
This podcast is not about canned foods, okay? This podcast is about fresh.
No, in part of your statistics, you said that Libby's has 85% of the market, which Libby's is owned by Nestle's.
Right.
And yeah, so that's the stuff that's grown in, what was it? Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and that production goes to the cannery.
Sure. And that's all good. In fact, a canned pumpkin.
Hey, how about pretty impressive? I just recited that to you.
Yeah, that shows you were listening.
I was listening.
But I guess what my question should have been was, do you guys have a favorite use of fresh pumpkins that you?
I don't decorate.
I like smashing pumpkins.
Yeah, okay.
What's
Well, you know
wrong?
what? That was one of the things I was going to include, but I left it out because there was so much to cover. There actually is a sport called pumpkin chunking. Have you heard of pumpkin chunking?
No,
It's
I
a
haven't,
sport.
but I'm not surprised.
Yeah, they
Isn't that a group though, a musical group?
Yeah, I was referring to the band.
smashing pumpkin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
by
they
the
actually
way,
have pumpkin. You know, they have pumpkin cannons, and they have contests to see who can shoot the pumpkin the farthest.
How about like read a book? If
Yeah.
you're like shooting pumpkins out of catapulting them somehow in the air to smash against something, just read a book.
Yeah, no kidding. But that actually is a sport, pumpkin chunking.
I'm not surprised. There's all kinds of weird sports out there.
But there's not a pumpkins spitting contest.
Pumpkin seed spitting contest. I bet there
Yeah,
is.
Oh yeah, a seed, but not the actual pumpkin. Okay, how many of you have a pumpkin at your house right now?
I have not purchased mine yet, so no.
Okay. Edwin, no jack-o'-lanterns yet.
No, when you ask what's my favorite use of a pumpkin, I don't think I've ever used a pumpkin ever, except when we were kids and made a jack-o'-lantern. I've never bought a pumpkin.
So even in California, where they have a lot of the pie pumpkins are very popular in California. You probably saw them in the stores a lot.
Oh yeah, I mean I see them all the time, but I've just never ever bought a pumpkin in my life.
Yeah, I think you're like a lot of people because they think it's only for decoration. They don't think about it as food.
Yeah. Well, no, I think I've thought about it as food, mostly a pumpkin pie.
Right.
You've enlightened me today about how many ways you can fix it, which I wasn't surprised by, but I just hadn't never dwelt on it. But now I will dwell on it, and I may go out and buy my first pumpkin this year and not make a jack-o'-lantern, but carve it up and eat it. Well, that's great, Rick. Thanks for enlightening us about pumpkins here in October. Get your pumpkins ready for your holidays, and very nutritious. Lots of different ways to prepare them, too. So thanks very much, Rick. Okay, Produce Buzzers podcast fans, it's time for your favorite segment once again, Homegrown. You'll understand why we call it Homegrown after you hear from Teresa Nolan with her pun of the day. Teresa, what have you got for us today?
How do you fix a broken pumpkin?
How do you fix a broken pumpkin? Seems to be, we should save this for after Halloween. Isn't that when they break the pumpkins, after Halloween? I don't know. Any other guesses from you, other produce buzzers? How do you fix a broken pumpkin? No takers? Okay,
No,
Teresa.
no takers.
How do you fix a broken pumpkin?
With a pumpkin patch.
Oh.
Yay!
Okay. Good job, Teresa. Thank you. You're keeping up the standards.
They're rather low.
You're getting us groaning more and more. Well, thank you, listeners, for tuning in to the Produce Buzzers podcast, brought to you by Produce Buzz, a gathering place for lovers of fresh fruits and veggies. We hope you were entertained a bit and educated a lot about fresh produce. Be sure to join us next time, and please tell your friends to do so as well. Like, share, and comment on our Produce Buzz Facebook page, and check out our website at www.producebuzz.com. There you will find articles about fresh fruits and veggies, how to select, store, and prepare them, as well as lots of interesting facts about all the wonderful bounty the earth provides for us. Until next time, be fruitful and don't forget to veg out.